There is a fundamental mistake people make when dealing with narcissists, and it's this: they assume that kindness will reach them. They believe that if they are patient enough, understanding enough, compassionate enough, they can break through the walls of narcissistic behavior, bring out the real person underneath. They hold on to this hope because they see kindness as a universal language, one that transcends barriers, softens even the hardest hearts. But here's the problem: a narcissist does not interpret kindness the way a healthy person does. When you show kindness to someone who values connection, they see it as an invitation to trust. When you show kindness to someone who values power, they see it as an invitation to exploit. This is where the fundamental disconnect happens. You assume they will respond the way you would if someone extended grace to you, but they won't. Instead, they will see it as confirmation that they have control over you. Think about the way a predator observes its environment. It does not look for the strongest, most alert prey. It looks for weakness. It looks for hesitation, signs of vulnerability, for moments of doubt. A narcissist operates in much the same way. They test you subtly at first, watching how much they can get away with. They make a cutting remark and see if you laugh it off. They dismiss your feelings and see if you stay silent. They overstep your boundaries and wait to see if you let it slide. And what happens when you respond with kindness? They learn that you will absorb the blow, that you will rationalize their actions, that you will prioritize harmony over self-respect. And that is all the confirmation they need to continue. Now you might be thinking, but shouldn't we meet cruelty with kindness? Isn't that what makes us the better per person? And that's an understandable instinct, but there is a difference between kindness as a virtue and kindness as self-sabotage. You are not dealing with someone who plays by the same moral framework as you. You are dealing with someone who uses your moral framework against you. Narcissists operate in a world of dominance, submission. They do not seek equality, they seek control. Every interaction is a test of who holds the upper hand. So when you respond to the trap of being nice to a narcissist, manipulation with kindness, they do not think, this person has a good heart. They think, this person is easy to manipulate. That is why your kindness does not soften them, it strengthens them. This is why the cycle repeats. You try to be patient, you try to show them love, you try to be the bigger person, and in return they take more, demand more, push further, not because they misunderstood your kindness, but because they understood it perfectly as an opportunity. So if kindness is not the answer, what is clarity, strength? A refusal to play by their rules. You must recognize that your value does not lie in your ability to tolerate mistreatment, that standing firm does not make you cruel, that enforcing boundaries does not make you heartless. A narcissist will try to convince you otherwise because their power depends on your compliance. They need you to feel guilty for standing up for yourself. They need you to feel obligated to keep the peace, because the moment you stop believing those things, they lose control. And this is the shift that must happen. You do not need to explain yourself to them. You do not need to prove your worth to them. You do not need to convince them to see your kindness for what it is. You simply need to stop giving them access to it, because the harsh truth is this: kindness only works on those who have the capacity to respect it. A narcissist is not one of those people. So the next time you feel the pull to be nice, to give them another chance, to excuse their behavior, ask yourself, are you being kind because it is right, or because you're afraid of what will happen if you are not? Because if it's the latter, then what you're dealing with isn't kindness, it's fear. Fear is exactly what they are counting on. The only way to break their hold is to stop playing the role they expect from you, not with cruelty, not with vengeance, but with something far more powerful: indifference. Because nothing disarms a narcissist faster than realizing they no longer have control over you. One of the most dangerous misconceptions people have about narcissists is the idea that if they just keep the peace, if they avoid confrontation, if they appease, if they show endless patience, the situation will somehow improve, that the narcissist will recognize their goodwill and reciprocate it, that through kindness and understanding the narcissist will soften and finally change. But this is not what happens in reality. Appeasement does not make the narcissist respect you, does not make them more compassionate or more willing to compromise. What it does is reinforce their belief that they are in control, that their actions have no consequences, that they can continue to do as they please without ever being held accountable. Every time you excuse their behavior, whether by telling yourself they didn't really mean it, that they're just struggling, that they'll eventually realize their mistakes, you are sending them one message: that they can treat you however they like, and you will remain, that you will adjust yourself around their dysfunction, that your needs, your boundaries, your dignity, those are all secondary to their wounds. And this is exactly what a narcissist wants, because a narcissist does not seek balance in a relationship, they seek dominance. They are not interested in equality, fairness, or mutual respect. They are interested in control, and control is not maintained through brute force alone. It is maintained through psychological conditioning. Now let's think about what happens when you consistently prioritize keeping the peace over asserting yourself. Over time, the narcissist learns that you are willing to make yourself smaller to accommodate them. They learn that if they push hard enough you will fold, that if they dismiss your feelings you will question yourself rather than them, that if they make you feel guilty you will rush to make amends even when you are not the one in the wrong. And once they know this, why would they ever stop? Why would they suddenly decide to respect you when they have no reason to? Why would they change their behavior? When you've taught them through your actions that they don't need to, they won't. In fact, it only escalates. The more you tolerate, the more they demand, the more you accommodate, the less they respect you. Before you know it, you have spent years of your life walking on eggshells, managing their moods, suppressing your own needs, all in the name of avoiding conflict. But here's what you must understand with a narcissist. There is no peace to keep, because peace in their world is simply how narcissists exploit kindness, the absence of resistance, and that is not real peace. That is submission. That is the slow erosion of your sense of self, until you are nothing more than a person who exists to serve their interests. So, what is the alternative? The alternative is recognizing that your silence is not a strategy. It is a surrender, that your patience is not noble. It is being exploited, that every time you choose to appease instead of asserting yourself, you are not preventing a battle, you are ensuring that the war continues indefinitely. And this is where things must change. You cannot negotiate with a narcissist through kindness. You cannot teach them to respect you by proving how much abuse you are willing to endure. The only thing they understand, the only thing they respond to is consequence. This means that you must be willing to disrupt the dynamic. You must be willing to say, no, I will not tolerate this. And actually mean it. You must be willing to walk away, not as a threat, not as an attempt to make them change, but as an assertion of your own worth. Because the truth is, narcissists do not change for people who make themselves smaller. They change, or more accurately, they adapt when they realize that their usual tactics no longer work, when they see that their control over you is slipping, when they understand that the person they once manipulated has learned to stand firm. The moment you stop playing their game, the moment you stop prioritizing their comfort over your own dignity, is the moment you take back your power. So ask yourself, are you keeping the peace, or are you feeding their control? Are you preventing conflict, or are you sacrificing yourself in the process? Because if the price of keeping them happy is losing yourself, then it was never peace to begin with. A fundamental mistake people make when dealing with a narcissist is assuming that logic, fairness, emotional sincerity will change their behavior. That if they just explain their perspective well enough, if they just communicate their pain in the right way, the narcissist will suddenly understand, that they'll have an epiphany, realize their faults, and change course. But this assumption is not only wrong, it's dangerous, because narcissists are not operating from the same framework of morality, accountability, even reality, that you are. You assume that if you express hurt, they'll feel remorse, that if you point out an injustice, they'll acknowledge it, that if you appeal to their better nature, they'll respond with self-awareness. But narcissists do not think this way. Their primary concern is not truth, fairness, or emotional connection, it's control. Control is maintained by distorting reality, by shifting blame, by keeping you so caught up in trying to fix the situation that you don't even realize the situation itself is the problem. This is why reasoning with a narcissist never works. You bring facts, they bring denial, you bring emotions, they bring deflection. You try to resolve conflict, they turn the conflict back on you. No matter what you say, no matter how reasonable you are, the outcome is always the same: frustration, self-doubt, and a feeling of futility. Because that's the game, and the moment you engage in it, you've already lost. A narcissist does not seek understanding, they seek control over your perception of reality. This is why conversations with them often leave you feeling confused, exhausted, even guilty, as if you're the one who has done something wrong. They twist narratives, omit key details, reframe events to make themselves the victim or the hero, but never the perpetrator. And if you call them out on it, they escalate, they gaslight, they rewrite history, insist that you're overreacting, or accuse you of being the problem. Because for them, the goal is not resolution, the goal is dominance. Now, here's where most people, why boundaries are essential, go wrong. They assume that if they just find the right words, if they just maintain patience, if they just appeal to reason, they can break through. They believe the narcissist must see the truth eventually, that deep down they must care. But they don't, and the longer you try, the more you are drained, the more you are manipulated. And the more you lose sight of what's actually happening, that your energy is being consumed in an unwinnable battle. So what do? Instead, you stop playing the game. You recognize that no amount of explaining, no amount of proving yourself, no amount of kindness will ever make a narcissist respect you, because their respect is not based on fairness, mutual understanding, it's based on power. The only thing a narcissist truly understands is what they can and cannot get away with. And as long as they see that you are willing to keep engaging, to keep justifying yourself, to keep hoping